So it's a warm welcome to everybody who's on the call live today. So welcome to our webinar, Reflective Writing Through Endings. I'll introduce Jackee in a short while, but just really to set up the call, I would encourage everybody to close down any applications. Just sometimes that affects the transmission speed. The session is being recorded, so if you do want to listen to it again, it will be appearing on our YouTube channel in the next few days. You'll be able to find it on there. Just to say that everybody is on listen-only mode, so that just means we'll be using the chat panel as a way of communicating to each other. So please feel free to write any questions, any reflections on the chat panel, and we will pause at certain points to enable you to do that as well. Final thing really is just to say that as this session is on reflective writing, this will be a contact sport today. We are going to be getting you to do a couple of exercises, so really encourage you to have some paper and a pen handy as well. So I think that's enough of setup really. I'd just really like to introduce a dear colleague and friends, Jackee Holder, to this session. So Jackee is someone I've worked with for many years. For the people that are training with us, you may recognize Jackee as one of our coach supervisors. Jackee also works as an executive coach and coach trainer, but is also a writer as well, and has written a number of books around the topic that we're going to be discussing today. And some of you may have connected with the previous webinars that Jackee has done for us on the topic of reflective writing. So it's a warm welcome, Jackee. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to be on these calls with you and your great tribe of coaches that you're training. It's great.
Thanks, Jackee. And we're going to be working together for about 45 minutes today. But Jackee, as we were developing today's session, we thought it'd be good to help people arrive with a reflective writing practice. So how about we start with that?
Yeah, that'd be really good. And it's really timely, Damion, given it's the end of the day. And I know I'm always aware that sometimes coaches come into sessions and they actually feel like this, like it is the end of their day, even though it's halfway during the day. So I'd love to start off today with a prompted writing exercise that is a way of warming up. You can use it throughout a whole range of different coaching sessions. So let's try this. How are you arriving to the call? How has your day been so far? What's on your mind? And where does your attention need to be? Now, I'm going to suggest that we write for about 5 minutes, and I'll time it. And I just want to put this in a context that this also comes from a technique and a tool called the journal ladder, which was originated from the work of Kathleen Adams. And this is called a 5-minute sprint. So I encourage you to write whatever comes to mind. So even though I've given you the prompt, you don't have to stay on track. Just see whatever comes and just try and get as much down as you can without worrying about grammar, punctuation, or spelling. And I'm going to do it as well.
So you're going to let us know when to start, Jackee?
Yep, so I'm ready to start. And I'll let you know when we've got about 30 seconds left.
Thank you.
Got about 30 seconds left. So if you can just bring yourself to a natural pause, finish your sentence. I just want to relax your wrists a bit, just shake them out. Bit of concentrated writing time there. And Damion, before we go on to the next part of the session, I'd just like us to just do a couple of things with this piece of writing, if that's okay.
Of course.
Yeah. So everyone, I'd just like to invite you, and I know a couple of people have just joined, so I hope that you did get to write something down. We just did a 5-minute writing piece, just writing around how we're arriving, how our day has been. I just want to invite everyone to just very quickly to read over what you've written and just circle or underline any things that jump out from the writing. We're going to do something, this is what we call a write reflect. And one of the important pieces of reflective practice, and also just thinking about taking that into endings, is going back and reflecting over your writing. That could be going back and reflecting over all the pieces that you've written from the start of working with a client to right to the end, to reflecting on what you've written more recently. So if you would read it, you can think about, what are you noticing? What are you aware of? What might you be curious about or interested in? Just circle or underline words or sentences. And just be aware of any themes that might be, or patterns that might be emerging. Some things might feel connected, or they might feel just completely different, but just see what there is. So I've circled quite a few words on my writing, Damion. Would you like us to continue, or would you like us to get some feedback from people writing the chat?
I think, why don't we just get a bit of feedback from people in terms of the impacts of doing that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So in the chat panel, if you have the opportunity to do that exercise, you maybe have finished underlining or circling words. So perhaps just a bit about what the impact that exercise has had for you in terms of arriving of this. Just thinking about the role modeling Jackee did with, this could be a coachee at the start of the session. So what was the impact? Please feel free to add any comments in the chat panel. It'd be lovely just to see some reflections.
Right. Oh. Can I start reading some of them?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so Jasmine, thank you. You said a journal. This is a space where there is no judgment. And that can be so important, can't it? In terms of so often your coaches are coming with lots of judgments, actually, in terms of their experiences, what they're going through. So just thinking about that. Ali, focusing your thoughts and getting greater clarity for going forward. That's great. That's very similar to mine, Ali, because I noticed that I had words like productive, spacious, focus, they jumped out of the writing. And if I hadn't have done that, I'm not sure I would have connected so well with how productive and focused I have been today. Rachel, you said it allowed me to let go of the day and feel much more at ease. That really related to the spaciousness that I also felt, Rachel. So that's really interesting as well. And Simone, you said it helped you to capture how you were feeling and what you needed to focus on. That is really important and critical. Great. And Rachel, again, she said, lovely to notice how my attention shifted to a clearer space, holding a pen rather than pushing a keyboard. And Damion knows that I talk about this a lot. There's so much research, Rachel, that shows the benefits of writing by hand compared to typing on a keyboard. And a lot of the research cited how memory retention is very different when you hold a pen compared to writing on a keyboard. And just thinking about all the comments that you've all said and just noticing how the writing exercise, 5 minutes, it felt for me like it expanded time rather than me thinking I haven't got enough time. It's like it expanded time, but where it takes you in terms of your awareness, your attention, how you're feeling physically and emotionally, and what it does in kind of shifting through your thoughts and clearing your thoughts. So this is lovely. Thank you. And yeah, go on, Damion.
I was just going to say there's a couple of others there from Mike. Raised awareness of background feelings and thoughts that I wasn't fully aware of during the day.
Lovely.
And I was just going to say I really relate to that because my writing really enabled me to be present for this session because there were some things that I let go of in terms of, the rest of my evening. I see from Nadia as well, when I planned my day, it felt like it was going to be so stressful. But once I put in a pen of paper, I felt relief and so easy to go with the day.
So there was so much that people had in common from that exercise, which is just 5 minutes, and look at how much benefit there was without us even going into the numerous research studies around the benefits of reflective writing, expressive writing, therapeutic writing, the physical benefits, the psychological benefits, the emotional benefits. We're living them as we speak from that 5 minute practice.
Great, Jackee. And just to say that if anybody does want to understand more about the research benefits, the first session I recorded with Jackee does talk a lot about that. Just to say it's there if you want to listen to it. But let's just pause for a moment because we've got just under a half an hour left in terms of the session today. So just in terms of this topic, I mean, myself this afternoon in my supervision practice, I had an ending with a supervision client. So as coaches, we have formal endings with our clients, but we also have informal endings, in terms of perhaps when the client, goes absent and we're not able to formally end with them. Sometimes perhaps the client leaves an organization and we're not allowed to continue the coaching work with them because of the support the organization is providing us. So just in terms of this session, and we have got some questions that I'm going to get Jackee to talk to, but what would you like to get from the session? So either questions or there may be things you want to take from today. And again, it would just be useful for Jackee and I to see some of those on the chat panel. So please feel free to add that in terms of where's your interest around reflective writing and endings, both for us as coaches, but also our clients. So I'm just going to pause and just see what thoughts or questions you have. Yeah, because I can see one coming through from Rachel about how we can end a relationship when the coachee goes absent without notice. How can we close it for ourselves without them being present? What habit structures do you find useful to put in place around journaling? So that's from the other Rachel. Thank you both for those points. Any others that are coming through from anyone?
Yeah, so the one from Ali
Mm.
around an ending a few weeks ago with a client who was struggling to commit to their homework and eventually after some challenge left. And Ali wants to record this better, so I'm interested in how to do this.
Great. Please feel free to add any others as you're getting into the session with Jackee and I today.
So should we dive in?
Yeah, I think we should. Jackee. So let's just start with a question, quite a broad question, I think. So, in terms of reflective writing and exercises, practices, how that can help our clients, our coaching clients with endings in the relationship, but also in their life, Jackee, perhaps a bit more broader. So what are your thoughts around that?
If you don't mind, I'd like to start with in life, and then we can funnel it down to how it really impacts endings. I think a lot of the benefits that everyone has identified right at the beginning in terms of the spaciousness, the clarity, the recognition of things that they hadn't realized before. These are all of the kinds of things that reflective writing can really help you connect with. I like to think of it that reflective writing helps us bring more consciousness to our present state, to what we're feeling, but also it helps to highlight the things that we can't always identify if we're not really fully present, and things that are very easily missed. So I think there's a consciousness of raising awareness. There is more awareness that comes to us, and we get greater meaning. And I think this can be very, very helpful when it comes to endings, because it can bring meaning to endings. It can really help you to plan for the future. I have found it really, really helpful to harvest my learning for me as a coach, and to support the client to harvest the learning that has been happening throughout the journey of the coaching. And it helps me see beyond what I believe that I have learned as a coach. I think sometimes as a coaches, we think this is just about the coachee, when actually so much of this is about who you are as a coach, who you are becoming, how you are growing into your practice, what you're doing well, what you could be doing differently. So the reflective writing really helps you make sense of all of that as you come towards the ending with your coachee. And that can happen whether it happens formally and informally. I'm so glad that this is, Damion, you brought this in around, like sometimes it's around a formal ending, and other times it's informal because a client's had to leave for a whole range of issues. And Ali, you've brought the situation with your client who left after before the coaching ending. So these are all ways the reflective writing can help you work more consciously. And I want to put this in the context that what endings really allows us to focus on is the process of transitions. Transitions are those points in the journey and the process where we have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And our life's journeys are like that. Our work and career journeys are like that. But yet, if we think about organizational life, we often don't talk to the transitions. And what the reflective writing does is really helps to mark the transitions that your coachees go through. When they start with you in a coaching relationship, they have a beginning. As they journey through the coaching, they move towards a middle. And as they move from the middle, they head towards the endings. And it's like that in the organizations that they work with. But we can make these have more meaning and be of more value by using the pen almost like a torch to kind of say, well, where are you in this process? What does it mean to you? What are you getting from it? I like what William Bridges has to say about transitions. He says that all endings and beginnings are joined by an empty or fallow time in between, and that this neutral zone provides access to an angle of vision on life that one can get nowhere else. And it is a succession of each of such views over a lifetime that produces wisdom. I think when we can hold the pen and encourage the coachee to write more into their endings or wherever they are in the coaching process, that this is what creates these points of wisdom and insights.
Lovely, Jackee. So can I just play a couple of bits back that resonated with me? I mean, this whole piece around presence, and I think when I think about even this afternoon with my client and asking them to reflect on their learning, what they've achieved from our relationship, you know, having a piece of journaling or reflective writing that takes them into that reflection means that they can be more conscious of, as you're saying, of the learning, of the identity changes that's been happening for them.
Yeah.
So it gives them more space. I really love the metaphor, you know, using a pen as a torch, because I feel, you know, quite often people aren't prepared for endings, even if coaches have signposted it, you know, and we know we're coming into the last session, but there's still that sort of emotional shift that sometimes people are experiencing. So then asking them what they're learning from the ending can be a challenge for them because they're in their process. So I like the fact that these practices can really enable the coachee to track their learning over time.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a really important point, because very often we have a lot of energy on endings. You know, if we think about our life experiences and we think about the different experiences that we've had with endings, many of us might have some baggage around endings. We've not had not so good endings. So we don't always come to endings feeling inspired or energized. So this is why it's so important for us as coaches to consciously think about the endings for ourselves, so that we can bring even more consciousness to the endings with our clients, and to be able to hold the fact that different clients will have different experiences around endings. So some clients will find it really hard to stay very present for the endings. And, you know, sometimes I think about different ways that I might do an ending. Sometimes I might just share a poem with someone and say, well, you know, for me, this is a poem that talks about a journey or talks about some aspect of endings. How does this reflect to you? How does this speak to you around the ending that you're experiencing? And that gives them a portal or a doorway that feels less angst, or gives them more spaciousness and more creativity to think about what the journey has meant for them. And I really like to be creative around my endings, so that we can really invite people to come to the table and really explore it in a meaningful way.
And so what exercises might we use then, Jackee, in terms of, you know, really marking the ending? So let's start with formal endings, and then we'll talk about informal.
Yeah, well, there's one exercise I love. You know, anyone who's done a retreat or a reflective writing workshop with me will know that I love using different tools, and I love making it very visceral. So I do a lot of letter writing in my workshops, and I cannot tell you the impact that they have. So there's a couple of letter writing exercises I just want to share, and maybe we could do one of them before we end. So the first one, and I want to emphasize how important it is for us to do this work as coaches ourselves. And this is really good. And I'm just thinking back to maybe Ali's comment around, you know, the client that is the coachee that's no longer there. This is an exercise that coaches can do for themselves, whether the client is still here for the formal ending or whether they have left and they're not there for the formal ending. So it's in the form of a letter. And it's one where you write a letter of gratitude and thanks to your coachee, where you say all the things that you've appreciated about who they have been and what you have learned from them. And I wonder if we could just take a couple of minutes, Damion, for everyone to have a go at thinking about a coachee that either they've ended with or they're coming up to an ending with. And let's just do a 2-minute gratitude letter to that coachee and just see what we generate when we think about writing a letter of gratitude for what we have learned from that particular coachee.
Yeah, great, Jackee. It's your timing, yeah?
Yep. And again, don't worry about spelling, grammar. Just bring the coachee to mind. Doesn't matter if it's been a difficult journey. Just think about, what are you grateful for? What would you like to appreciate them for? What have you learned from them? What are you taking away from your experience with them? And I want to let you know that this is a letter that you won't be sending. So you are free to express yourself in any way you wish. Got about 20 seconds left. So if you just come to a natural pause in your letter. And then I've just added another question to the chat, Damion. And this is a question for everyone to reflect on what they've done. So I hope you can see the rhythm that we're creating here. You get the real benefit from reflective writing when you reflect on your reflections. So I really want to encourage you to have these little practices that you kind of have a thread from one piece to another. So my question to you is, what are the benefits to you as coaches in writing this gratitude? Sorry, it should say letter, I put better, letter to your coachee, which you will not send to them. Just make a couple of notes to yourself, or write it in the chat. Actually, what are the benefits to you as coaches in writing a gratitude letter that you don't send to your coachee? What will you get from it as a coach? How might it be of value to the coaching and the ending? Oh, so Ali, you're saying it already feels like I have an ending, and that ending is not just an ending for my coach's journey, just a stopping place. Great. Focusing yourself on appreciation of the coachee's strengths and achievements. I think that's so important. That's come from Mike. It's a really good way of you consolidating and synthesizing what you want to acknowledge and appreciate your coachee for. And that is such a great gift to give your coachee to leave with. So obviously you don't have to send them the letter, but you have now got, it's like you're harvesting their achievements and their strengths to now offer them as a verbal gift. Some lovely things coming up. A sense of how far the coachee has come from Amanda. Rachel, you said it helps surface the true qualities present in the coaching and what you have brought to this as a coach. Lovely. And Simone, it enables me to reflect on the positives of the coaching relationship and what the coaches took away. And Ruth, you said it takes more benefits, positive outcomes, as opposed to focusing on self-critical thoughts, things we might have done differently. It's a general appreciative exercise for both of us and the coachee. And I love that, because I think we're really getting to see how this generates and really builds your internal coach and your internal supervisor. It really comes from a strengths-based perspective. Ali says it's a stopping place for the present and how much work she did rather than what she didn't. And that's only come out of writing this letter. And Rachel again re-emphasizes that it's letting go of the critical inner dialogue about why they might have left early. That's so important, because here, through the writing practice, you get to access different perspectives to a challenge. You know, there is learning every experience that we have with our coachees. Sometimes a coachee can come for a reason and not a season. They don't have to stay forever, but we can learn so much from them. Jasmine saying it's a better way of understanding how the coaching relationship was symbiotic and there was a positive impact for both of us on the coaching journey. I think, Damion, we're really seeing how a simple practice like writing a letter in that way changes your emotional connection to the work that you've done with your coachee, and it energetically brings about closure for both coach and coachee, whether the coachee is present or not.
No, great, Jackee. And I'm just thinking a lot of my coaching clients in organizations have informal endings with their team members, you know, or peers. Yeah. And actually, this is a great exercise to get them to do. Yeah. What I really appreciate are these exercises are very short, and therefore is normalizing the whole process of journaling for our clients as well. I'm sort of conscious of time, Jackee, and I just wondered what other exercises you use, because I know, for instance, you in terms of your creative toolkit, you use a lot of luggage labels. I've experienced. What just a few more thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we use it. The luggage labels are one of my signature tools. And the idea is they're great. They're very portable. They're easy to write on. They take people away from their cognitive thoughts. So sometimes when we're writing on paper, we're still connected to, you know, our cognitive thoughts, our working lives. When you have a luggage tag, it takes you into a different state. They're really good for this, the metaphoric questions of how are you arriving and how are you leaving. I use them a lot with senior leaders, and people really take to them. It's almost like it gives you a really warm and inviting invitation to allow yourself to write freely and express yourself in a way that is uninhibited. Use the letter writing. I use letter paper stationery. I find that makes a big difference to how people come to an exercise and a practice. As coaches, you can have your own kits. They're very easy to carry around with you. And I just pull them out, and, you know, coachees love them. I have questions. I have a whole list of questions that I'll share with the coaches on the call today, but things like, what are the strengths or qualities you've been demonstrating in the work with your coachee? What are you most proud of? What are the strengths and qualities do you wish to take forward in your coaching practice? What might you have missed that you've done well? All the things that you've picked up from that last exercise. But one of the things I'll say about a lot of the questions that I use for the reflecting on the endings is I like to type them up on a sheet of paper and then cut them up into little slips and just have them in an envelope and just pick out different questions. I find that idea of having ritual and ceremony, it really helps with the transitions, and it really helps to make the ending meaningful, purposeful, and almost like to have a symbol to the ending. And talking of symbols, sometimes I just bring in images and I invite the coachee to pick a symbol that reflects the endings and what they'd like to take away with them in terms of an image to think about the future and going ahead. So there are so many ways that you can be really creative with the reflective writing and how you weave that into your endings in a creative way that you're inspired and energized to engage with as coaches.
Thanks, Jackee. I mean, so many resources there. I suppose a question just to start to pull things to a close for today's session. But if I was to ask you, so what's the one key learning that you've had as a coach about endings? What would you say to that?
When I think about that question, Damion, I think for me is I'm always surprised by the fact that coachees highlight different things than I would expect them to highlight about what they've learned and what has been most meaningful to them about the coaching. So I've learned that the best thing for me to do is to always hold an open mind and be curious and to let go of expectations about what has been of value to the coachee. And I think it's such a lovely thing when you hear a coachee speak to what moved them, what touched them, things like, a coachee has said to me, the way you've listened to me, the way you feed things back to me, the laughter we've had in the coaching sessions, how intimate the sessions have been. Those tender moments are the things that people and coachees talk to that just have huge impact on what they're taking away.
Thank you, Jackee. And again, I just the importance of us actually really taking stock and acknowledging that, rather than moving on without the chance to reflect,
Yeah.
So it's so important in terms of our own sort of self-regard.
Absolutely.
So as always, as we're coaches, the final part of this session is just a bit of a pause for you to think about, just from this session today about endings and how we can use reflective practice in our endings. What are you personally taking away from the session? Jackee's given you a couple of experiential exercises around writing practices. We had the how are we arriving practice at the start, and then what we're noticing from that, and then the letter piece. And again, Jackee always includes another question for us to reflect on our writing, which I think is so valuable when we're using this with our coaching clients as well. So again, just feel free to write any comments on there in terms of what you're taking away from today's session. It'd be lovely for Jackee and I to see that. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to just remind you of our CPD event happening on the 10th of July, deepening your practice. And you can see some of the topics that are going to be covered on that session. And again, our next webinar is taking place on the 24th of March with Ruth, really around the whole piece of developing adaptability in leaders and supporting leaders through transitions. So Jackee, just anything you want to say just to close today's session from your side?
Yeah, there's a lovely study from Harvard. It's called "Making Experience Count: The Role of Reflection in Individual Learning." And it really speaks to the power and the value of reflective practice. And part of it, it says we learn through reflecting on the experience. Once you reflect on an experience, it's the most powerful way to improve your performance in the future. On an emotional level, reflection increases your self-efficacy, the ability to achieve certain goals. Stop doing busy work and start doing your best work. And I just want to say that for me, I think the power of reflective practice is that it also builds our skills and techniques as thought leaders. The more you reflect, the more you build valuable content that you can build into your coaching practice, you can speak about to others, you can write about. And I think that that is how we really grow as coaches, that the reflective practice really adds value to that.
Thank you, Jackee. And I think, if we're all about creating sustainability, and helping coachees really grow, this is such an important aspect of supporting them between sessions about their learning. And I think what you do really well, Jackee, is normalize it, short, sharp bursts of reflection. And I think leaders take really well to that.
And just to say to that, Damion, that often once I always start with the 3 minutes or the 5 minutes. We do 5 minutes and 3 minutes, but often what people find is that they want to write for longer. I am sure that if I'd said, let's do another 5 minutes on the letter, we would have done another 5 minutes.
Thank you, Jackee. Really appreciate your time as always. Thank you for today's session.
Thank you, Damion.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining us. Really hope